ultimate strategic bomber, one with which the Army Air Force could crush Nazi Germany's industrial base. For all its assets, the B-24 had a number of very serious flaws that made it far less beloved by its crews than the B-17. Most serious, the Liberator could not take nearly the beating that the Flying Fortress could.
It seemed to me that about half of our missions, we had malfunctions of one type or another, either caused by the combat or sometimes just happened. Get halfway to the target, and one of the engines would go completely out. Oil would spurt out. No oil. Have to feather that engine and then turn around and come back rather than continue. So it was a problem, major problem, and they did everything they could to keep them going, but as I said before, they lost half of the planes that we had by the end of the war, one half. Incredible.
While the B-24 wasn't exactly fragile, it certainly was not in the same league with the rugged, tough machine that Boeing produced. All too often, Liberator missions turned into tragic tales of death and destruction at the hands of enemy fighters. B-24 pilot Bill Foster recalls just such a mission over occupied Europe.
We lost an engine, and there were fighters around, but they weren't really attacking our squadron. But I don't know whether a stray bullet, maybe just a hose flew off or what, but we lost our oil pressure on one engine. And so we feathered the engine, and we just couldn't keep up. We fell back, and we were the last one with a photographer on board. Then we lost another engine, caught on fire, and the fighters were attacking. That's when they really came in from all sides. Then they had this ME-110, a twin-engine fighter with the rockets. I'd never seen a rocket or heard of one, but we could see them going by us, and they were the ones that really did all the damage. They hit our waist and killed 2 or 3 fellows in the back there. They shot all our engines off, or they quit, and all of a sudden my rudder controls just went out. I had no control of that at all, and same way with the ailerons. So I yelled, "Let's go." We had to go up through the hatch, and we're lucky our airplane had that top hatch because they all didn't. It was only 2 foot square about, and that's where we went up, all of us on the flight deck. And just as I was standing there ready to go up, I see Pete, my navigator, coming up from the bomb bay, and I got up on top and helped him up, and we were the last 2 out of the airplane. My intention was to walk all the way back the airplane on top of that fuselage and jump off the tail. But just as I started out, the plane lurched, and I fell down on the right wing and rolled off through the flames. The whole trailing edge of the right wing was on fire. And I rolled off through that, and I must have passed out because I don't remember pulling the chute. But I woke up, and I was being lifted up in the air by the chute opening. And the airplane was not too far off, and I saw it crash just, probably a city block from where we landed. One fella, early in the mission, when we were first attacked, he had his foot blown off. And we issued morphine to him, or I had to give that to him. And we thought that he had been, when we counted the chutes, we thought he had been blown out, but we found out later that they threw him out, and he was alive when he went out, but he landed in a tree and bled to death. The tail gunner was killed in the turret. The ball turret down below, he was killed just getting out of his turret. I don't know how he knew, but the photographer told me that he took a rocket right in midsection. The worst one was the nose gunner, who he had his turret over to one side. And it was shot out. The controls were shot out. The bombardier tried to wind him back in mechanically, and he couldn't do it. So he died screaming. He was in the airplane when I left.
Besides being less than durable, the B-24 with its narrow wing tended to wallow above 20,000 feet. This made it a mediocre bombing platform and made tight defensive formations above that altitude impossible to fly.
Controls are very mushy on a B-24, extremely mushy. That means when you're flying in tight formation, you're constantly moving throttles and the rudders and the ailerons all the time, just continually moving them. It was hard work. After we worked 15 minutes apiece, the pilot, two pilots, and after 15 minutes, you're ready for a rest.
Our best fighter cover, this isn't fact, but it's the way we felt, was B-24s. They kind of flew this way. It's tough for them to fly formation. So if the fighters picked on anyone, they'd go after them.
It wasn't as stable as the B-17, so the B-24 guys couldn't fly as tight formation as the B-17s. And so the Germans would see the looser formations flown by the B-24 groups, and they would go in and wade into them, launch their attacks at the ones who looked like they were straggling a little bit. So tight formations had to be maintained even until the end of the war, otherwise you were a target.
To help offset the B-24's inability to fly tight formations, Consolidated equipped the J model with a nose turret that sported a pair of .50 caliber machine guns. While the additional firepower helped, it cut the Liberator's speed down to 278 miles per hour and reduced its radius of action to around 1,000 miles. The B-24J was also a foot longer than the D model, measuring 76 feet from nose to tail. Thanks to the new nose turret, its empty weight had jumped from 32,000 pounds to almost 40,000 pounds. The B-24 also turned out to be hard to fly. Small pilots usually could not handle the Liberator as the rudder controls were so heavy and taxing that they required a bigger man with strong lower back and leg muscles. At times, it took both the pilot and co-pilot working together to operate the rudders effectively.
Flying formation, it was real heavy on the rudders. We all got what they call B-24 knees, especially at altitude. And I had a pretty severe case of that, but it didn't last.
Never loved like the B-17, the Liberator would nonetheless provide yeoman service in the U.S. Army Air Force. Never flashy, but always capable of getting the job done, the B-24 equipped the entire 3rd Air Division within the 8th Air Force. By mid-1944, the 15th Air Force in Europe flew B-24s almost exclusively. In the South Pacific, the B-17 initially served as the mainstay of the heavy bomb groups. By mid-1943, however, the B-17s were giving way to the longer-legged B-24s. Eventually, the Liberator entirely replaced the Flying Fortress in the Pacific. By war's end, the B-24 had been produced in greater numbers than any other American aircraft. No fewer than 18,482 Liberators rolled off of assembly lines throughout the United States, including the famous River Rouge plant